Brian Noble, am I right in saying it was a really positive review of the Featherstone game? Really good to focus on highlighting what worked well last week.
Yeah, I think it was. As with all reviews, the good and bad and the ugly, and I think there's plenty more good than there was bad and ugly this week.
How important was it for the team to deliver such a strong performance after those 3 defeats, and what do you think that says about the side's character and resilience?
I think it was important that they played positively, and they did, and that they kept playing the way that we all want to play. As for their resilience, I think they're a pretty good group with effort-wise and those kind of things. But you do question yourselves after 3 losses. That's natural. It's human nature. You would be alive if you said you weren't. But I think they expelled those demons, played the way that we wanted to play, and that can only augur well moving forward.
Has it been a good week at training? Certainly good to have this good weather around after what has been a fairly abysmal start to 2025.
Well, I'm not quite on the same. Oh, you mean weather-wise? I hope.
Yeah, weather-wise. Yeah.
I thought you meant the performance of the teams. I think we've had some pretty good high moments at the moment.
No, I was focusing on the weather.
The warm. Well, the sunshine is just good for everybody, isn't it? I think any person in any walk of life functions better when it's like this, and we certainly started that way on Sunday in the sunshine and want to continue.
What does a win like that over Featherstone do, sort of like on an emotional, mental level?
Well, it takes a little bit of pressure away, because people ask unfair questions, as with all of these things. People make unfair assumptions as when you're in that kind of a dip, if that's the right thing. It wasn't that much of a dip for me, and we tried to explain that to the players, that it's only performance and the hard road, taking the hard road and making the hard decisions and not taking easy decisions gets you out of that kind of situation. I still think we're a way to go on that, but I was really, really pleased with the way they applied themselves, and particularly applied the way that we want to play.
You mentioned post-match, Brian, just how satisfied you were to see that attack click so effectively. For those watching, listening, just how much work, 'cause I know you mentioned there's been a lot of hard work, but just how much work have Joe, Jordan and James been doing behind the scenes in an effort to, create that sort of fluency in execution?
Well, the good thing about rugby league is you can't do it on your own. And you mentioned Joe, Jordan and James there. You include Luke Hooley, and you include Mitch Souter, and you include everybody that's responsible for getting your team where you need it to be and then executing the plays. But without all the other blokes, the bits in the middle and the bits on the edge, you don't got anything. So it's a collective thing. But there has to be a recognition sometimes that there are some people more influential in a game than others. And those influential people need reminding of their responsibilities to get what everybody wants and be part of what everybody wants to create. So they go on all the time, these discussions and these. It's nothing new. It's nothing revolutionary or revelationary. It's something that's part and parcel of a team that's growing together.
In the past, there's been a lot of praise for Wonga Blake and Jaden Okenbar, but how pleased were you to see the left edge of Kieran Gill and Guy Armitage, between them score those 5 tries?
Well, I think it's just a reminder for everybody that we have some potency right across the field, particularly on the left as well as on the right, and welly up the middle. It's about applying ourselves and making sure we've got a fair share of possession for starters, and making sure that we're not hindering ourselves with poor decisions. And I think over the start of the season, most teams make some decisions that they don't want to be involved in. And you just got to highlight those and say, well, that's not for us, that's not for us, that's not for us. How do we want to play? And I think that's where we're coming to. I think it's still a few games yet before we see the very, very best of this team. But we're certainly taking some good strides.
In terms of those areas of improvements which you asked and spoke about going into that Featherstone game, when you look at the sort of statistics, Brian, Bradford won the penalty count, won the set restarts, the error count was significantly lower. Does that show to you that the players are learning, they're improving, more importantly, they're taking on the messages from you, Greeny and Keith?
Well, they're all great indicators, but they're not the be-all and end-all. The be-all and end-all is making good decisions at the right times if the ball's in your control. And that doesn't mean to say you don't play football. It means you're prepared to play in a certain way and understand the dynamics of the game and the game that you're in. I think we've got a fantastic test this weekend. You know, all those ingredients that you want in a game of rugby league, the pressure, the trapdoor element of it. We're playing a good team. Just have a look at their roster. They're a good team. Maybe they haven't clicked the way that they want to just at the moment, but they're going close all the time. So it's going to be a really good challenge at the weekend.
On the sort of defensive side, you mentioned you weren't entirely happy, Brian, but
No.
Have you highlighted any of those, 24 points that you've conceded, room for improvement, in what was a convincing win, but, as you said, you're never going to get a perfect game of rugby league, but
No.
that was a bit of constructive criticism for the team, the 24 points and 4 tries that they did concede.
Yeah, we've highlighted some things that we're working on, and we will work on tonight at practice, and we'll reinforce some of our beliefs defensively. I thought there were other areas in the game where we could have been a little bit more, is dominant the right word? Maybe more intense is probably a better word. But we made really good positive strides, and I don't want to dampen that down. We'll need a bit some more this weekend, because I'm under no apprehension as to how tough the game's going to be at the weekend.
Can you read anything into, I think it's 4 or 5 tries conceded off opposition kicks in the last 2 games, or is that an Achilles heel, or is that just sort of the game of rugby league, and the opposition have worked well with those kick chases?
That was a great observation. A couple of ricochets in there. It's things that we will be working in amongst everything else. Absolutely, we'll work on that because we pride ourselves in what we do and what we don't do, and we've talked about them. And it's important that we understand that with the ball, well, I think we scored 3 from kicks at the weekend. I've been scoring tries from kicks. Well, why wouldn't the opposition? So what's our foil to that, and what's our response to that? And that's what we'll be aiming for.
It is Sheffield, it is the 1895 Cup this weekend. How do you feel, Brian, that the side can elevate, improve on their performance from that win against Featherstone?
Well, you mentioned a bit of kick defence there, and you mentioned a bit of line speeding, so you should be a coach, mate. There you go. There's a couple of improvement areas we can get involved. I just think we've still got an element of composure about ourselves to empower. But yeah, just a connectivity. I want to see the same connection that we had at the weekend, and they'll be all right. They'll progress.
It is a home game back at Odsal. How does that sort of affect the balance between defence and attack, if you understand that question?
I think I understand what you're trying to say. It's a smaller field. The dynamics are not quite as wide or as slopey, something like that. But yeah, we should know the dimensions of our field. I suppose it's a bigger question for the opposition, but we know that what we didn't do last time at Odsal and what we have to do this time to pull some points.
Long-term injuries, which we know about to George Tafua, tiring up Tom Holmes, Eben Skir, you mentioned, might be back potentially. What's the latest with Eben this week?
We don't know till tonight, fully after this practice. We're not flush with players. Eben's probably the only one with a chance of changing the team. Maybe Bailey Lou might come in. Yeah, we got to look at it and see how we practice and see how we finish up.
The health of everyone else is okay?
Yeah, everybody else fine.
And I guess it's fair to say, Brian, after what was by and large a strong, convincing performance against Featherstone, there's probably going to be minimal changes anyway as you reward that side and that performance.
Yeah, well, we'll look at Sheffield, see if we've got anybody that can offer anything else to throw at them. But I thought scoring 9 tries and a couple of things we need to work on defensively. Clearly we'll need to be better. But yeah, it's encouraging signs.
I don't know what your phone's been like this week, but certainly I've had a couple of rugby league agents ringing around, potentially trying to move players in and out at a number of clubs. Have you been tempted to potentially strengthen, knowing there's a few injuries?
With the right person. So that's also key. You know, a lot of people recruit and don't get the right person. They think they're getting the right person. I think it has to be somebody that, if we're going to bring them in, has to improve the squad or particular area of the squad, and that's about availability. So yeah, there are a few teams are finding out about their teams, and phone calls are being made, and people are being made available here, there, and everywhere. But it'd have to be the right person.
It is trapdoor rugby league, no second chances.
Mm-hmm.
Can you use those big games already this season against Castleford, Batley, Salford to help your side prepare?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair observation. I think the motivation of it being a final at Wembley helps as well, without overcooking that egg or exposing that reason too much, because we have to perform. You have to play the game, and that's what I'll be impressing upon the people. You've got to play the game before you get anything.
You've just mentioned Wembley, Brian, before getting very ahead of anyone's else. More importantly, this weekend is a chance to reach the semi-final of the 1895 Cup. How much is that going to feature as a motivational tool for the team going into this game?
Well, you're lying if you're saying the players don't think about that at this stage with 2 games to go. But it's not your priority. Nowhere near your priority. You just need to remind people that, well, unless you go out there and perform and do the things that we improved on last week and some more, the opposition, what do you think they're showing Mickey Mouse films or Despicable Me 4 to their players to get them motivated for a game? You can throw all sorts of things on. Yeah, there's a reason why you should mention it, but there's also a reason why we should mention that we've taken some tough steps last week in getting to where we want to be. There's still some tough steps to take.
These are always close, tight, hard-fought, really competitive, tough games against Sheffield Eagles. What are your expectations for this one on Sunday, Brian?
Exactly that. That's what we normally get when we play Sheffield, and sometimes it's the bounce and the ball that separates the team. So if we can get in charge of our performance and do what we do particularly well, then we're as much chance as anybody else. Internally,
you've clearly set goals and targets what you want the club to do this year, but what would progress in the 1895 Cup mean to you and the club?
Well, the club have a whole lot of aspirations, and part and parcel of knocking off IMG points is a good run in the Cup. So you have to pay attention and pay the proper attention, which we are doing. On a personal level, if anybody was to sit there in a room and set goals, of course it would be one of your objectives. So it plays a part, but I can only reinforce, I've been involved in many big games, as you know, all over the world. You have to play, and you have to listen to what you think is going to get the opposition, but I understand Craig Lingard's been a successful coach at this level for a long, long time, and you've got to be good to beat his teams.
Sheffield, of course, have a sort of strong history with the 1895 Cup as previous winners. Do you think that gives them an advantage or anything in terms of that? They have that kind of connection with the competition, and they certainly know how to be successful in it.
No, or maybe. I think it helps if they've got some of the people that were there when they've been there before and understand what it's about and what a good day it is. They can give testimony to that. They've got some new players this year, and they've got some good players that understand that dynamic. So they'll be plenty charged up when they come towards us. We're aware of that, but I think we'll be plenty charged up too.
And just when you look at the month of April, Brian, you've got these free fixtures,
free whoppers,
yeah. You almost might want to go to Burger King and
say,
look,
don't do Burger King, mate.
But obviously the focus is on this week, but the month as a whole, you've win or lose at the weekend, you've then got the bye week, which is a chance to obviously rest and refresh, but then you've got Halifax away and Oldham away, the top two in the championship, so quite a, as you say, a whopper of a month is April for the club.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's Super League-esque, isn't it? These kind of fixtures. There'll be big crowds, there'll be big occasions, and you've got to play well. And that's our goal. You know, if we play well and the opposition play well and they get us on something, then I can live with that, and our players can live with that. What we can't live with is underperforming and saying, well, if we'd have done X, Y, and Z, we'd have been in the game. That's no good anymore. We're getting to the point 6, 7, 8 weeks into the season. Thought we took strides last week. We need to see more strides from ourselves this week, and then we get to rabble rouse for 2 massive fixtures as well. So, honestly, if you're involved in professional sport, it's what you should be looking forward to.
And just away from this weekend's game and the Bradford Bulls, the elephant in the room, NRL Europe.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Brian, on that? There's a lot of sort of conjecture, a lot of rumours. There's going to be a condensed NRL Europe of 10 teams, potentially Super League goes to 14. What are your overall thoughts on what should happen?
Well, my overall thoughts is the game needs to change a little bit like it changed in 1996. Some huge decisions were made for the game. I mean, massive decisions. Have a look at the turmoil it caused, and originally with you've got to amalgamate, and you've got to go with you, and you've got to go with that, and X, Y, and Z. And franchise were coming in, but I just remember the start of '97 of Super League. PSG, I think, was the first game. I thought, wow, what are we involved in? We were at parity up until 2006. We were at parity with the NRL and with rugby union. So we saw the best players in our competition. We saw world-class players smattering, producing our own players coming through. It was such an exciting competition. And I think if we're all being seriously honest, we get games now in the Super League that we started the season really, other than the Salford story and probably a little bit of Huddersfield not doing as well as they would like to do, we've seen some fantastic rugby league. Now, when you throw in the mix of the NRL, which is the best rugby competition in the world, and I'll challenge anybody on that one, it's just well run, well supported, unbelievable players, and you get a competition every week. How do we amalgamate the two? So if the NRL are serious and they want to come over here and make an impact, we'll do it properly. Don't just cherry pick and say, well, there's only 8 teams here we want to look at and we think we can do something. That's a fire sale for the game, and I don't advocate a fire sale. It's ridiculous. We have to find a competition structure that appeals to everybody, that facilitates all the community clubs. And of course there's serious decisions to be made in there. Of course there are. Do you have true aspirations to play at the highest level? Well, if not, well, become a feeder club. Oh God, that's me going to be hung now. Be a feeder club for somebody else that's in Super League. But we're doing that now. Have a look behind the scenes. If you don't have really serious aspirations as an expansion club to be in the Super League, we're actually doing it now. So don't shoot me. It's happening. And so we need to give those clubs identity as well and purpose, and we can do that. You know, all of these things can be resolved, but boy does it take some head slamming together. Somebody's going to have to get there's a strategic review going on, and I don't know how brave they want to be with that strategic review. But for somebody who's encrusted in the game of rugby league and has loved it from the age of 13, from when I played it, and seen a lot of the things that have gone on. I've seen the international game. How exciting was it this week when they announced an Ashes tour? Wow. So it's no brainer to me. There are lots of positives about our game, that what we've got. We need to identify those games. We need to be careful with the NRL as to what they actually want to do and what they want to achieve. If they're not coming over to improve the prospects of a young kid that's starting at 13 in our game, and not with a view to stealing it to take it to the NRL. I'm talking about having the premier Northern Europe competition in the world, rugby competition in the world. With in mind there's more competition up here, you know, with rugby union, the Six Nations, and etc. etc. You got me going on a little diatribe here, Mick. I think it's good news because there'll be influential people and leaders amongst the people that are talking that might see a way forward for our great game over here.
And just finally, Brian, I don't want this to turn into a podcast.
Yeah, I can do if you want. You can gob off and I can gob off, so it'd be a good gob off podcast.
But in terms of Bradford and looking into to next year, how is this having an effect on your plans and preparations and the club's plans and preparations for next year, where Bradford are one of those clubs in limbo under the current IMG system, where there is a strong chance possibility Bradford could be in the Super League, but then you hear the rumours, certainly from the meeting yesterday at Batley, that IMG are going to be shown the door, and no one really knows what's replacing it, and what are the mechanisms then for a club like Bradford or Toulouse or York to reach the promised
It's the same argument. Someone needs to grab it and lead the game and give, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. The world clears up massively when everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not doing. As far as we're concerned as a club, I can only say from our players group is that we approach every week with doing the best we can, because at the start of the year we set ourselves some goals, and clearly one of those goals is Super League. But I'm sure there are another seven clubs in the Championship feel the same way. So that's, we'd all love, even if some of the part-time people don't get a gig, we want to leave this place in the best possible condition on the football front to be a part of whatever's decided is going to go forward, and that's all we can do.